Hello, welcome to the Crime Gist. My name is Damisa. Today's case focuses on a Kenyan family that lived in the United States, in the state of Minnesota to be specific. It's a sad tragedy that saw a lovely family fall apart. It left 3 members of the family dead, 1 going to jail, and the youngest traumatized for life. Without further ado, let's get straight into today's story. On Wednesday, October 13, 2010, at approximately 10 p.m., Minnesota Rice County patrol officers received a call that a vehicle had stalled on the highway and that there were 2 women trying to push it out of the way. When the officers got there, they found the 2 women who said that they had decided to help push the vehicle when they found that it had run out of gas in the middle of the highway. They told the officers that the driver of the vehicle, who they did not know personally, had left his 3-year-old daughter in the car and gone to get some gas. A short time later, the officers were informed that a suspicious man was seen running southbound. They drove there and found that it was the little girl's father, identified as Justus Kebabe, who stated that he was trying to go get some gas. They observed that he looked distressed and not very coherent. They drove him back to where he had left his stalled car in a bid to understand what this was all about. Once there, Kebabe was given and failed some sobriety tests. He then admitted that he had taken some Tylenol pills. He was immediately transported to the Rice County Law Enforcement Center for a drug recognition expert to look at him. Once there, Kebabe began to rant, admitting to taking pills and then stating that his wife had a diabetic reaction and that he had found her dead in their bathroom. Knowing that Kebabe was a father of 3, the police questioned him about the safety of his other children. He would tell them not to worry about them, saying that his children were safe with his brother. This rant about his wife raised some serious concerns, and the police decided to contact Kebabe's brother, who also lived in the United States. His brother would say that he had no idea that Kebabe's wife was dead and denied that he had Kebabe's other 2 children. He, however, stated that he had already called in for a welfare check at the Kebabe residence hours earlier. He explained that he did that because at about 3 p.m. that day, other family members had been called by Justus, who was crying and acting very distraught. He told the family that he was going to unalive himself, telling them that he wanted to be buried in America and not in Africa. His brother told officers that following this call from Justus, he had made repeated attempts to call Kebabe's wife, Bilha Omare, with no success. He had therefore called in for a welfare check at their home. It turns out that the welfare check call was made to the Ramsey County deputies and not to the Rice County ones who had Kebabe in their custody. Ramsey County deputies at the time did not know that Justus was in the custody of Rice County deputies. This is a question of jurisdiction, as Justus lived in Ramsey County, but his car had been found on the highway in the Rice County jurisdiction. During the welfare check by Ramsey County deputies, they had gone to the workstation of Bilha Omare and found out that she had not showed up for work or called in absent for 2 days on Monday, October 11th and Tuesday, October 12th that week. Her supervisor stated that that was very out of character for Bilha Omare based on 2 years of very responsible work history. Based on these circumstances, that Wednesday, October 13th, 2010, at approximately 11:45 p.m., officers were dispatched to the residence of Justus Kebabe. His residence, Vadnais Heights, was located at East County Road, Ramsey County in Minnesota. Before entering, officers announced themselves, but no one responded. Upon entry, police noted that a TV was on, but other than that, the apartment appeared dark. They observed that numerous doors to the rooms in the apartment were locked. With the assistance of the management, a bathroom door was opened. Inside the bathroom, they found the body of an adult female, Kebabe's wife, Bilha Omare. Police noted that Bilha Omare was dead with her body discolored and blood on the floor around her head. It looked like she had been deceased for 2 to 3 days. Police then opened up a locked bedroom door and found a deceased juvenile female, 9-year-old Ivan Ogendi, in the bed. In yet another bedroom, they found a deceased juvenile boy, 12-year-old Kinley Ogendi. Both Ivan Ogendi and Kinley Ogendi were the children of Justus Kebabe and Bilha Omare. Kebabe himself was nowhere to be found. The Ramsey County deputies then put out an alert for the missing Kebabe. They were shortly thereafter notified that he was in custody in Rice County, where he had been arrested for driving under the influence. He bailed out of Rice County and was then charged with homicide by the Ramsey County officers. The next day, October 14, 2010, investigators interviewed Justus Kebabe. After being read his Miranda rights, Justus initially stated that he had found his wife dead in the bathroom from a diabetic reaction and that his other 2 children were with his brother. Later on, he would open up to the officers and give a very chilling confession of what he had done to his wife and kids. We will come back to that in a minute. First, a little background on Justus Kebabe. Mr. Justus Kebabe Ogendi was born on May 10, 1967 in Gesera village in Nyaribari Chache in Kisii, Kenya. He was an average student in school, but he had dreams of becoming a nurse. His dream would be realized years later when he applied for and got a chance to attend a nursing school in America. But before he left for the States, he married his long-term girlfriend, Bilha Omare, who hailed from Matunu village, also in Nyaribari Chache of Kisii County in Kenya. Justus would then leave for the U.S. in 1996 and a few years later would get a job as an assistant nurse. Bilha followed him to America in the year 2003 when she also applied for a nursing course. The two, it seemed, had shared dreams, with the man already a nurse and his wife pursuing the same course. During the subsistence of their marriage, the two would go on to welcome 3 kids. By the year 2010, when this horrible ordeal unfolded in this family, Justus had been in the U.S. for 14 years and his wife about 7 years. But it was reported that the two had a lot of domestic feuds. It emerged that the couple had a history of domestic violence well before going to the United States and that it continued even after they settled there. According to the relatives' accounts, Kebabe and his wife had been having a series of conflicts in their relationship. They, however, had no idea it would snowball into something as ugly as the death of 3 members of the family at one go. Mr. Kebabe had lamented of the fact that he had brought his wife from Kenya to the U.S. and that she had started, quote-unquote, disrespecting him. He suspected that Bilha was having an affair as he had told his brother and other family members. In 2008, 2 years prior to this ordeal, police had been called to the couple's home after a domestic disturbance was reported. Bilha Omare claimed that Kebabe had been violent. This led to the suspect being charged with domestic violence. According to the incident report, Omare told officers that Kebabe had picked up a vacuum cleaner and threatened to kill her with it. He later pushed her across the room. The report states that Bilha also told deputies that Kebabe had previously beaten her unconscious in Kenya but was more careful with physical assaults in the U.S. She reported that Kebabe had threatened to kill her numerous times. Kebabe denied all these accusations. So these charges were pled down from domestic violence to disorderly conduct. He spent 3 days in jail and was also put on a 1-year probation. Following these charges, Justus had his nursing license revoked and was out of work for almost a year. He could not work without his license, and as you can imagine, he was bitter and blamed Bilha, his wife, for all his woes. Kebabe, however, did his time and came off probation after 1 year. Sadly, a few months after he was discharged from probation, he would go on to commit the horrifying triple murder of his wife and kids. So, how did this happen? In his confession, Justus Kebabe detailed the following. He told investigators how on that Monday afternoon, October 11, 2010, an argument ensued between him and his wife Bilha over suspected cheating. The fight escalated to where he clobbered her with a golf club, and when she started screaming, he strangled her with an electric cord. Kebabe stated that he then brought her body into the bathroom and then locked the door and put a towel under the door to prevent any blood from coming out. When the children came home from school that Monday evening, they went about their evening unaware that their mother lay dead in her bathroom. They then had dinner and went to bed. On Tuesday morning, October 12, 2010, Kebabe prepared a drink of cranberry juice, putting inside a handful of Tylenol pills. Disguising the taste with some sugar, he gave the drinks to his children, Ivan and Kinley. After they finished drinking, the boy, Kinley, went to take a bath in the bathtub. Kebabe followed him to the bathroom and held his head underwater. Kebabe said that Kinley resisted and struggled, stating, "Stop, Daddy, stop." But he continued to hold him under the water until he was dead. He then carried him, put him in his bed and covered him with blankets before closing the door from the outside. He then went into Ivan Ogendi's room where he found her groggy and laying on the bed. The pills were already taking their effect. He placed a pillow over her head and smothered her, but when he thought it was taking forever, he started choking her until she was dead. He left her in her bed and also locked the door from the outside. He confessed that he tried to unalive himself but quickly realized that he had not made any plans for his surviving 3-year-old daughter. He would then type notes on his computer to his brother about the future care of his daughter. Kebabe then said, out of panic, he took his daughter Savannah and drove until he ran out of gas and the police found him. Justus Kebabe was put on suicide watch while in custody. It was reported that he had tried to unalive himself by stuffing toilet paper in his airway. He was, however, discovered before losing consciousness. 3 weeks after the killings, on Friday, October 29, 2010, Justus pled guilty in Ramsey County District Court to 3 counts of second-degree intentional murder of Bilha and his 2 children. His sentencing followed on Friday, January 14, 2011. He had nothing to say as he was sentenced to 3 consecutive sentences of 25.5 years each. That's a total of 76.5 years in prison for murdering his wife and their 2 children. Asked if he had anything to say, he replied, "No, Your Honor." However, his attorney, Bruce Wenger, asked that the sentences be concurrent rather than consecutive. Kebabe had pleaded guilty to the crimes almost immediately, Wenger said. He should be given consideration for that. Also, the fact that Kebabe dragged his children meant that it was a quick, quiet, and painless death, he argued. With a concurrent sentence, Kebabe would be free in a little more than 20 years. Prosecutor Eric Leonard, on the other hand, asked District Judge Elena Otsby to impose consecutive sentences for Kebabe. He stated, "This crime did not occur in a vacuum. The defendant's assaultive behavior towards Bilha had been going on for a while. This case involved some planning, some premeditating, some attempts on his part to cover up the crimes." Judge Otsby, agreeing with the prosecutor, stood her ground with the 3 consecutive 25.5 years sentences. Justus will be at least 94 years old before he's eligible for release. Judge Otsby said to impose concurrent sentences would be to unfairly dismiss the lives of the 2 youngest victims. She said that she had looked up the law in Justus and Bilha's native Kenya. There, we wouldn't be talking consecutive or concurrent sentences. What we would be addressing is whether Mr. Kebabe should be put to death, she said. Bilha's family were in tears after the sentencing that Friday. One by one, they told of their family's grief. Bilha's uncle, Peter Masongo, said that his family was shattered when they learned that Kebabe had killed his wife and the 2 children. There are those who will try to find reason why this man should walk among civilized people, he said. Given what he has put our family through, what he has put the community through, he does not deserve to walk freely. Bilha's brother, Danvas Omare, said that he and other family members had planned to travel to Minnesota that December when his sister was set to graduate from nursing school. Bilha had told relatives to plan ahead as she was graduating from nursing school in December and wanted them to fly in from the East Coast and Africa for the celebration. They came instead for her funeral as she was murdered barely 2 months to her graduation. Bilha never got to live the American dream, her brother said through tears. The man who pretended to love her wouldn't let her. There has been no explanation as to why those children were killed and Savannah was not. She was placed in the custody of Ramsey County during the trial. Bilha's family would later ask for the custody of the girl. After this ordeal, some family members in Jersey City said that they wanted the bodies buried in Jersey. At the memorial service of the murder victims at St. Patrick's Church in Jersey City, Bilha's family members expressed fears that the relatives of the murderer would try to get custody of Savannah and prevent a smooth burial of the three. And sure enough, as they had predicted, a battle ensued in November 2010 over the burial of the three. The dispute was between Danvas Omare, who is Bilha's brother, and Evans Kebabe, a brother to the killer, Justus Kebabe. On the one hand, Bilha's brother, Danvas, who lived in New Jersey, wanted the state of Minnesota to hand over to him the bodies of the slain victims so he could bury them in New Jersey. This would help the couple's surviving daughter, Savannah, have closure and a place to grieve. On the other hand, Justus Kebabe's brother, Evans, wanted the bodies shipped to Kenya for a burial in their ancestral home in Kisii. Evans, who also lived in Minnesota, argued that his family had the right to decide where the deceased would be buried in accordance with the customary law of the Abagusi. He contended that according to the Kisii customary law, the deceased, who was duly married in accordance with the Abagusi customs, should be buried at her matrimonial home in Nyaribari Chache by her in-laws. Evans even went to court to seek orders to stop the plan to bury the bodies in America and especially in New Jersey, where he claimed that Bilha's brother did not have the required permanent residence status to enable him to buy a burial ground for the victims. His argument was that Bilha's brother had made unilateral decisions to start burial arrangements without involving Justus Kebabe's family members. Authorities in Minnesota sided with Bilha's brother, saying that the law recognizes the blood family of the deceased persons as the legitimate next of kin and burden bearer. The bodies were then flown to Jersey City on November 10th for a November 15th burial. However, the burial would be postponed because some of Bilha Omare's family, who lived in Kenya, were denied visas by the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. The family members already in the U.S. vowed that there would be no burial until the relatives from Kenya could attend. Politicians, Senator Robert Menendez and Donald Payne, were notified of the visa situation and they decided to lobby the embassy in Nairobi on behalf of Omare's family. Within days, the visas were issued and the Kenyan relatives flew to New Jersey in time for a private viewing and burial on November 19th at Rosemont Memorial Park in Elizabeth. This brings to an end the tragic story of Justus Kebabe. As we speak, Justus sits in jail paying for his evil actions. My heart goes out to Bilha's family and anyone who was affected by this tragedy. Please tell me what your thoughts are on the comment section down below. And as usual, please do not forget to subscribe, comment, and share this episode with other true crime junkies like yourself. See you right here on the next one.